Lifted Drinks. Join the party, skip the hangover. Created by hemp and cannabis lovers, Lifted is an amazing, tasty, non alcoholic beverage created to improve any evening in or weekend out. Lifted is 100% hemp cannabis, 100% consistent, 100% of the time. We could ship anywhere in the US. Just add ice or mix it with your favorite beverage. Check them out at lifteddrinks.com. That's LYFTED drinks.com. Enter in radio to get a 20% discount at checkout. You must be 21 or over to join the party and skip the hangover.
It's only entertainment.
Welcome back to The Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, capital markets analyst and host of the Cannabis Business Podcast. With us is Doug Chloupek. He's the CEO of Juva Life, available on the OTC under ticker symbol JUVAF. Doug, thanks for being with us at The Talking Hedge.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate you having me on your show today.
Yeah. You guys are a vertically integrated cannabis company in California. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. What drove you into that market? Why choose vertically integrated over retail? What was the strategy? Kind of talk us through that, because I think the concept of going in and buying licenses is fascinating, and being able to have a vertically integrated facility, where in Washington you're not allowed to do that. Everyone kind of just assumes that MSOs are the thing, whereas Washington's the opposite, and then you have this vertically integrated. So different facets within the industry. Walk us through your strategy, how you got to where you are, and what it was like.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate that. I've commercially done this long before this was the popular industry to be in. So I'm going on my 13th year of opening, operating, and running, dozens of these cannabis companies. First one was in California in the Bay Area in 2010. When feds were kicking indoors, and it was very much not the popular thing to do. And so at that time, there really was no industry. It had come out of the Prop 215 and Prop 4 SB 420 era in California, and starting all the way back in 1997, I was one of the first 3,000 members to legally use cannabis in the state of California. So this was definitely not a follow the green rush type of mission for myself. And after opening the first dispensary, figured out we needed to have cultivation because there's a broken supply chain. And then after opening cultivation, it was like, oh, we need sun-grown. Oh, we need manufacturing also. Oh, you know what? We have this big science need that's here in the industry that nobody's really touching. And, at that time in 2011, 12, 13, it was really, it was a bunch of snake oil. It was everything fixes everything. And we kind of come full circle a little bit, where now we're in the CBD snake oil of CBD fixes everything. And it's just not that, unfortunately. So I really saw the need and grew with the industry from before an industry to this point, and saw how to operate in a complex gray industry that you needed to try and operate in a black and white manner to try and succeed. And that's what really led to where Juva is today. After opening, literally, I'm permit holder number 1 in the state of California for manufacturing and researching cannabis back in 2016 out of the city of Berkeley. So done this for a long time and learned a lot of things. And those led to the necessity, in my opinion, for the research and the level of research we were doing and are doing on the cannabis plant to control the supply chain. I've operated lots of retail, but we really needed to control the supply chain from what we were cultivating to the extraction modalities, the way that we do any of our separations, the way that we're going to then research any of the controlled substances, and then how do we then disseminate those into product diversification and then take those subsequently to end consumer. And so that's really what drove the necessity to be vertically integrated. And a year and a half later, or 2 years into that, some portions of that have changed, and I'll elaborate on that in a minute. But science is what's driving my company, and what's making some of the changes that we're in process of.
There's still a lot of changes going on. Washington State's been around for 10 years in the regulated market, and still a lot of changes. California, no different. The pandemic has changed a lot too. I would have thought Washington would have jumped on the bandwagon for delivery a lot faster, and it's just not. It's just not in their priority list right now. What about the pandemic changed your business? I know that curbside pickup and delivery that was implemented, available. You're seeing some direct to consumer sales, which as a retailer might be concerning wholesale prices are coming down. There's a lot of chaos, taxes, robberies, all of these issues. What are some of the issues that you're currently trying to navigate through right now?
We're a really different company. So your question is an interesting and somewhat loaded question, being these different states. Every state has had their oh shoot, we really messed that one up. And they've all been slightly different from Oregon, Colorado, Washington. I mean, to be perfectly honest, as much as I'd hate to say it, our colleagues north of the U.S. border, their government figured it out really quick and came from far behind and far exceeded, but that was because they were able to do it on a national level that allowed global export and a lot of the other aspects that the U.S. has just completely fallen behind in. When we bring that a little more nuanced, items like pandemic ushered in touchless signing, so that you didn't have to have your multiple points of touch again. They have the curbside, where you used to have to be in and actually at the resident, or at the you still have to have an address. But so there's a number of nuances that have made kind of business a little more normalized than some of the oh my god, they're working with plutonium and they're going to blow the world up, we have to overly regulate this, which is the fear factor that many municipalities have had and many states have had. For Juva, while all of those things have been a bit of an assistance in ushering in a more streamlined manner of operating business, at the end of the day, California is just being crumpled between cultivation tax, between the broken supply chain. When we were in the 215 and 420 era, we had 4,000 plus retail stores that were paying local taxes. They had state taxes coming in. And now we have, we're scratching the surface of not even 1,000 stores, but we have more production. We have almost an acre of production per retail license right now, which just ushers in the dirty distributions that are just shoveling it clean product out of state, which is just a systemically broken and flawed system in California. And the people like us who pay our taxes, operate the right way, play within, the very delineated guardrails, it makes it very, very, very difficult for businesses in California, not even just to be profitable, just to stay in business, because of how broken the supply system is. And that's where this diversification of us being vertically integrated definitely does help, because of controlling the cultivation. We have direct to consumer delivery, we have distribution, we have a new retail store coming online. But one of these aha moments, which is, I don't want to say contrary, but it is an alternative way of thinking to many in the industry, is as I kind of go full circle to the snake oil. CBD doesn't fix everything. THC doesn't fix everything. Cannabis doesn't fix everything, but there are a lot of things that it does assist with. Unfortunately, we've been lacking the level of science and diligence that comes typically from like the pharmaceutical industry. And we've applied, decades of anecdotal information as assumed fact, when in fact, it's not necessarily assumed fact. It's assumed opinion based on anecdotal information that has had an inability to validate it in a quantifiable manner that actually makes sense to regulatory boards and those who would be doing peer review publications. And so we took this very different approach, which gave us this aha moment. The aha moment, which changed our necessity to control the supply chain, was, this might be a little shock, THC and CBD in their form or mixed with other cannabinoids, for the most part, has almost zero implication for pain and inflammation control in the human body at their root. Full stop. Which is polar opposite of what a lot of folks will say. And so I am not saying the entourage effect does not work. What I am saying is that what we associate to be the entourage effect, the myriad of cannabinoids, terpenes, flavonoids, synergistically working together to create a targeted effect on the human body, may not actually be the combination of all of these cannabinoids, terpenes, and flavonoids, but it might be some of the minor, underestimated, not previously identified compounds found within that umbrella that are actually creating the mode of action. We have identified Juva 19 and Juva 41, which are small, single compound, stable molecules found in cannabis that are not cannabinoids, not terpenes, not flavonoids, and they have a high mode of action to regulate the different cytokine pathways in the human body. That's been proven in vivo and in vitro assays, and it is moving its way through the standard pharmaceutical drug development pathway at this point on an expedited pathway. That is what the full circle to the necessity to control the supply chain and be fully vertically integrated. We have a facility in Hayward. It's formerly built on a $28 million US government grant. They researched modified tobacco that they grew in the greenhouses, and it has a $5 million class 5 clean room inside of it that we were in the process. We're millions of dollars and 4 years into this development project. We said, wait, full stop. I don't actually need this entire massive infrastructure, because the things that forced me to have this infrastructure, THC primarily, are of zero synergistic benefit to Juva's core mission, which is specific to controlling inflammation and pain via the cytokine pathways, which are the inflammatory pathways in the human body, controlling those at their root. So not how do we stop eczema from appearing and what do we put on to stop eczema, is what creates eczema at its root, and how do we modulate the control pathway to prevent eczema from ever starting or to reverse it at its root. So not the Band-Aid to cover the issue, to actually address the root of the issue. So that's been the real aha moment. And sorry if that was a bit long-winded there, but that's really what delineates the difference between the research Juva's doing and most others in the industry. Hi, son, I'm on a call.
So you mentioned Juva 19 and Juva 40 something.
41.
Similar to just a couple of years ago, we found out about THCV, or not THCV, THCA, I think, or no, what was it? I remember being at the Lift Expo in Canada, and all of a sudden something just popped up, and people are like, "Oh, hey, have you heard about whatever?" And I'm like, "No." So there's research. I'm sorry, I forget what it is, but the point is you're finding out new compounds that can be a benefit to our endocannabinoid system. What is it specifically about Juva 19, for example? Is it going to be happy, euphoric, energetic? Is it anti-inflammatory? What is it specifically that you found about that, and what ailment can it benefit?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's been the biggest aha, is that acetaminophen comes from nature. It's extracted. It's Tylenol, and it's a single stable small molecule that you can take as a pill. When I started Juva, I, as the cannabis industry guy, not the pharmaceutical guy, not coming from drug development background, thought I needed to have this formula. We were going to have formulas. This was the combination, this entourage effect formula that would then be targeted in 5 modalities of delivery mechanisms, capsule, inhaler, and a few of these things. And when I brought in folks, way smarter than myself, who have been through the FDA process, Dr. Sanjeev Gangwar, he's our vice president of chemistry. He has 55 patents to his name from his career. He was the director of oncology and inflammation at Bristol Myers Squibb. He's one of the co-inventors of Cialis, one of the co-inventors of one of the most widely used cancer therapeutic used to date. And with him and Dr. Guy Miller, a double PhD, who runs our science advisory department, he sold one of his former companies to Johnson & Johnson for over $1 billion and sits as a natural products drug advisor to J&J. When you put that level of diligence to what I, as a cannabis guy, said, hey, we need these formulas so we can go target, neurologic issues with high CBD formulas, and we can target pain with these, 1-to-1 ratioed, and we can target, and I started going down what we anecdotally knew from many, many years of doing this. And they said, that's great. Let's take the pacifier out, and let's now talk about where and how this really has global implication, not just our siloed view of California, retail cannabis, OTC, whether it's medical or not. And that was the aha moment, which said we have chronologued and put together a database of every cannabinoid, terpene, flavonoid found in the cannabis plant. We've cross-referenced those via in vitro assays in every combination of them, running them against standard pharmaceutical pharmagate profiles, seeing which one of any of these compounds have any activity to regulate inflammation or pain in the human body. So we started at the very basic fundamental. Let's take everything we know, let's sidetrack it, and let's look at this from a very nuanced level. And so we did that. We profiled the entire cannabis plant. And then we took what we anecdotally knew. CBD works for neurologic pain, THC works for pain, and these different compounds. And we made combinations of all of these, what we would talk about as like a formula. And then we, by just due diligence, digging into the plant, identified some items that had compounds that had not been identified. They were not patented. They've never been in commercial application use. And those were these like just off the charts activity. It's like, oh my God, like we were digging for gold and we just found, pound sized nuggets. Like what happened? We were expecting gold dust. And that was the aha moment. So then we combined those with all of these other combinations. And what we found is that when we combined any other cannabinoid, THC, CBD, the combination of them with flavonoids and what we would know as the entourage effect with any of our Juva 41 or Juva 19, it down-regulated their potency and activity, full stop, which was the wait. So for what we're looking for, we're not looking to get people high. We are looking to create an active pharmaceutical ingredient and accelerate its pathway to full global commercialization via one of our pharmaceutical partners. And we're able to do that via our delivery and discovery methods in a matter that's anywhere from 3 to 5 years faster and $200 to $600 million less to take this drug to our partners, who will then take this through the final phase of FDA approval. So Juva is not looking, and we have no intent to create a Juva branded product that will be sold via a pharmacy globally as a Juva product. However, the identification of our compounds and the IP fencing and how these are progressing will be licensed and or sold in entirety to one of there's about 20 pharmaceutical partners that can afford, and you've seen this historically, GW with the $7 billion acquisition and a few other multi-billion-dollar acquisitions. That is exactly the pathway of Juva and where we're looking to take the company.
I was thinking about THCP, by the way. It sounds like there's an inverse relationship to just like CBD. There's an inverse relationship to THC, kind of bringing that down a little bit. Is this research, obviously sounds like this is going to be the bulk of your revenue. You said you're not growing to sell. You don't have retail shops for consumers. Is that right? Juva doesn't have.
No, actually, let me
going to be the research and development rather than cultivate to sell.
There's two delineated pathways in the company with two different revenue streams. So we have 600 lights of flowering production cultivation. So we harvest every 10 days. We've just completed a $12 million 4-year build, and we're now harvesting a few hundred pounds every 10 days. That's the direct to that's through packaged products. That's going bulk wholesale. We have active deliveries where we have 2 delivery businesses actively delivering directly to the consumer, generating millions of dollars a year, and a new retail store that's in the process of being built right now, newly licensed in Redwood City. I got to brag about that. Out of 28 applications, many of them being big publicly traded MSOs, we were ranked the #1 highest scoring application in Redwood City, and were granted the very first license with the best location in the peninsula. So no, we absolutely, that is where the bulk of our revenue, and actually all of our revenue, is coming from the production, commercial cultivation, production of cannabis and cannabis products. The blue sky windfall, which will really drive immense wealth and liquidity, comes from the licensing, which we're utilizing the cannabis infrastructure and supply that we've built to offset the cost of R&D and production, so we're not continuously having to have dilutive financing for our company.
What's the bottom line for investors? Is it going to be licensing? Is it going to be a buyout? What is the ultimate?
Either of the two. Either of the two. The board has an 800 million to a $2.4 billion exit strategy. We feel fully confident that we will execute that. We're somewhere in the 18 to 25, 26 month range from fully executing that. We have a number of pharmaceutical partners that are already identified, some of which we've been in discussion with. We're a little too early to enter into some of those final discussions at this point. We need to get the next phase of data from the in vivo assays that are currently occurring, and you'll see some press coming out about that. So unfortunately, I can't speak too much about that at this point until we disclose the rest. So yes, we have a very strong trajectory. The current market cap of the company does not in any way reflect where the company is at, or I mean, the simple assets are the simple assets of the company, cannabis assets that are relevant of the IP outpace the current market cap. So the market's just a little underwater, and we're going to continue doing our solid research that really no one else is looking at. And we feel fully confident that that's the major delineator between us and most others operating in this space.
What are there barriers to competition in that? Because right now there's a lot of competition with CBD as a commodity, race to the bottom and pricing. We saw what happened to MedMen as a retailer just get totally demolished. And right now, nothing is safe in the market. Everything is kind of getting hammered right now, and probably will until margin gets eviscerated. So is this going to be bread and butter? Is this going to be something that you need to focus on? And is the competition, is there barriers to the competition so that you can continue to do what you're doing without, facing, somebody else kind of getting in front of you?
Yeah, I think the barriers are a number of them. One is we created a process that is our own process of how we have identified, vetted, and pushed through the pharma stage gate development to an expedited pathway. That is unique. We developed it. It is ours. It is not commercially available. You can't just go off the shelf and say, "Hey guys, can you go and do this?" And so that is because of having teams that are global world leaders in natural product development and looking at a complicated problem and asking the question differently in order to get a separate set of ideas or answers that most are not looking at. And so that's really one of the big pieces there. The other is that almost all researchers and academia are either one, prohibited, or two, working with isolates or with the Missouri farm to get subpar cannabis input, which then keeps them on a similar track. So most of research is looking at the primary cannabinoids or secondary cannabinoids, not looking at the plant in its totality and the therapeutic benefit of unfound or unmet molecules, not specific to cannabinoids. So most in the world are looking at cannabinoid therapy, where we looked at what's the therapeutic benefit, irrelevant if it's a cannabinoid or something else. And what we identified is that the cannabinoids for inflammation, controlling the primary cytokine pathways in the human body, cannabinoids have almost no therapeutic effect compared to Juva 19 and Juva 41.
I would imagine the roadblock also is FDA, the cost of approval, the complexity of their application process. It's not just something that anybody can jump into and start applying for.
It's not, and the good part is that we were able to move exponentially beyond where most would get to this point of first in human data or to primate safety tox data. We hadn't even mentioned this, but we have one of the largest WIRB approved research registries operating in the United States. So that's for up to 2,000 patients. There's 6 specific ailments. It's physician oversight. There's a fully functional app that integrates with it. We have, 5 or 6 of the country's largest product manufacturers that are participants, that we're using their products to create, in essence, a baseline of best-in-class products, and if they do or don't work, to remove the anecdotal components and actually have sound science. And so that is really the launch pad, that the data from that then gets cross-compared against, once we have the safety and tox data, what these products will end up being, and if we end up taking these back into humans. So there's an expedited pathway, and I want to be really clear, Juva is not intent on filing for an FDA IRB or an FDA IND, and then going through multi-phase clinicals to eventually end up in first in human approved by FDA. So we will have our partners who will do that. And the value of Juva is the ability to expedite, to get to first in human in an expedited manner, which is a navigation around the standard drug development pathway.
Hmm. If investors or anybody else wants to get some more information, they can check you out. Ticker symbol JUVAF on the OTC, Canadian Stock Exchange under Juva. Where else are you at? Social media, website?
Yeah. So our website is just juvalife.com, where we have past history stuff. We have a bunch of stuff about our press releases, as well as the research registry that we have going on. And as you mentioned, we're traded on the CSE under Juva, the OTCQB under JUVAF, and in the Frankfurt Exchange in Germany under 4VV.
Okay, I think with that, we're gonna have to roll this one up. So I want to thank my guest, Doug Chloupek, CEO of Juva Life. Doug, thanks for being with us at The Talking Hedge.
Thank you so much for having me. Really enjoyed our conversation today, Josh.
I appreciate it. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is The Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't, and I'm out.
Don't forget to smash that like button on your way out and check out these other videos that we've got.
Hi, it's Justin Benton, host of the Miracle Plant Podcast, where we discuss this miracle plant that goes by so many names and how it's helping people in so many extraordinary ways. So if you love this plant and you want to hear a story that tugs on those heartstrings and learn more about this plant, then head on over to the Miracle Plant Podcast. You'll be glad you did.